When you want it flicked? Like,
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for the invitation to come along and talk today about bioblitzs, and I understand you're going to run one, so which is a really good thing to do. Just to give you my background, so yeah, I'm a Walpolean, born and bred from years back, so I grew up in Walpole, always had a love of the bush and things like that. So I spent my youth just running around out in peat swamps looking at frogs, tadpoles, all those sorts of things. And yeah, things like feature plants, we have them on the farm, so I was really lucky with that. Some of you may remember me from the veterinary clinic, so I worked here for 20 years in the Denmark Vet Clinic, so that's my background as a veterinarian. Now I'm just working on our farm full time over in Walpole. I'm a volunteer with the Walpole National Parks Association, and a lot of what we're doing is related to the peatlands, an area that we've sort of identified, an ecosystem that's very, very vulnerable. They're drying out, and unfortunately we introduce fire the wrong way, they catch fire and unfortunately disappear. So we've been looking at peatlands for a while, and my wife, who's a paleo-ecologist, we'd seen a BBC documentary about a bioblitzs about 15 to 20 years ago, and we thought it's a really good idea. So it wasn't really the right time, but we parked that idea until the time came along. And it was really during COVID, when there was a lot of people in WA, travelling in WA, staying in WA. They were coming down, they wanted to know what you could do in Walpole other than the treetop walk. So you'd send them out to Mount Franklin, and they suddenly realised there's this whole world out there. And people wanted to know more. And there was a lot of interest in, you know, I've seen this, what is it, how do I work it out, that sort of stuff. And we sort of thought, well, now's the time, have a go at a bioblitzs, let's see what happens. And it sort of grew very quickly. So our first one was 2021. Having never been to a bioblitzs before, I've been to two now, and they're both ones we've run. But it was a really interesting learning experience. So I guess we're going to talk about that. If you've got questions, fire away at me. But yeah, sort of our experiences and how it can work for you guys and things like that. So yeah. So this is last year. So the first year we had a single Facebook post. So 2021 was lockdown. We ended up with 130 people come along. Last year was 160. And unfortunately this year we actually have to turn people away. Like there's a lot of interest. People really want to learn. They want to take that opportunity. They want that connection to country, and that's what these sorts of things provide. So yeah, we'll go next one. So we've chosen to use the platform iNaturalist. Now I don't know if anyone's familiar with it or not. It's a simple app that you can get on your phone. You can do it on your computer as well. And with iNaturalist, basically what happens is you make an observation. That might be a photograph. You might see a bird, you can just write that in, you or type it in. You don't actually have to have a photo necessarily. And you can also put sounds in, so if you record a frog sound, and you upload that to the platform. And then from there, anyone from around the world can actually look at it and help identify it. So for us, you know, a lot of local people, Melissa Howe's a gun, she's just on there all the time identifying people's photos. Another guy we know, Perky, he's done nearly 60,000 IDs or something like that. He's just, and across the world. A lot of our lichen, mosses and fungi stuff get identified from people from Europe. So they're all just looking and seeing these things. So it's an international platform. And what happens is the info that we put up, then if it gets identified by 3 people, it becomes what they call research grade. So that means that scientists can download that information and actually use it as part of their own research. So it actually can be integrated into their own projects. And so it goes into the Atlas of a Living Australia, and it also goes into a place called GBIF, which is Global Biodiversity Information Facility. So it's another global atlas. And yeah, so basically from there, there's a lot of studies on it now that this sort of citizen science is proving as robust as traditional science. So it's actually a really good way of actually getting some hard science happening. So we'll go to the next one. So then this is last year's one, and by the end of it we had over 3,000 observations. So not all of those get identified because sometimes they're really bad photos, or sometimes you need more than just a photo because some sedges and rushes you'd actually need to get down to the base and things like that. Or you might need sort of multiple angles of the same thing to try and identify it. But of those 3,000 observations, we've got about 600 species identified to genus level, which is pretty good. So the way we set it up, and I think you guys are doing it slightly differently, that's cool, but basically we create a shapefile, which is basically draw a dot on the map and then just draw a circle around it, put that on INAT, and then every observation, we set a time frame, and every observation done in that time frame in that circle gets automatically added to our bioblitzs data. And we've actually set it up from July to June, so 12-month period. So we can capture things like fungi that are early in the season. Obviously we have our spring bioblitzs, but then there's like autumn flowering plants as well, so we'll go back out there and we can capture a whole season's worth of information. So that figure there was basically at the end of 12 months worth of observations. So this is us out in the field. As I mentioned, peatlands are one of our areas that really we had the intention to sort of try and get some attention onto the peats. And because of the Walpole Wilderness, I mean, where you guys are, I mean, all the forest out here, you can be right in peatlands and then walk only a few hundred metres and you're in tall Karri forest, and then another few hundred metres you're in Jarrah sort of thing. So we've done it sort of as an ecosystem base. We sort of have our central location and we send out teams to different ecosystems. And each team is usually led by an ecologist or a botanist or someone like that. So they sort of have a bit of a theme happening. So we'll have you guys from WA Museum come down and have like invertebrate specialists. One year we had aquatic invertebrate specialists, so we did an aquatic team. Some years we're overrun with botanists, so lots of those. Any botanists here? The reason I ask is this year we've got hardly any botanists, but we seem to have lots of frog specialists. So yeah, everyone wants to look at frogs this year. So yeah, we basically split the circle that we've drawn on the map up, and we try and make as many locations as we can to cater for the number of people that we've got. We generally split ours into teams of up to 10 people, and that depends on the ecosystem as well. So we go to every location we can prior to, and we make an assessment as to whether it's an area that can have high impact or low impact. So some areas like peatlands, 3 to 6 people is enough. But other areas, last year we did the Tingle Forest and we took 3 teams of 10, so more than 30 people went in there because it was really accessible and there was very minimal impact, even though it's Tingle Forest. The way we did it was actually pretty low impact. So you need to make some sort of assessment of the areas that you're going to work on, like granites and things like that. May not be the best to take too many people on. And obviously the other thing you've got to think about is disease risk. So, so this is the top of Granite Peak, so the granites, we actually got a few people up to the top of the Granite Peak, so we did, this is my son. But I was just mentioning, he decided he was going to run people up there, so he did 4 trips up to the top of Granite Peak over the weekend. And it's an area you could get up to, and we knew it was going to be on the burn plan, so we knew it was going to be burnt, and we knew any signs of a trail that we created would disappear very, very quickly. But yeah, you have to think about your disease protocols. So you're getting up to the top of granite like this, it's dieback free. So we treat everything as potentially dieback free, and every group goes out with a dieback kit, and we have certain clean down points, making sure they clean their boots before they come. But following the whole, as you move from lowland to upland, the further up you go, the more often you clean sort of things. So we have those sort of protocols in place. So every team has to do that. We make sure that if we're going to go to a dieback free site, we'll go there first, and then visit a dieback infested site second. Again, just reduce your risk. Anywhere that's a wetland as well, we've got to think about chytrid fungus in frogs. So we're also doing that. And you guys have dieback kits as part of the thing, as part of the environment centre. So your dieback kits are great. You can have them in your backpack, and they will do the chytrid fungus as well. This is just to prove you don't have to move very far from your car to find something really exciting. People just jump out of the car and it's fun. For all of us locally, we probably don't get all that excited by duck orchids, but yeah, when you've got visitors coming, duck orchids are the thing. So yeah, they all jumped out and found them right on the graded edge of the road. So our event, so normally a bioblitz is run over sort of a short 24-hour period. or a single day. Because it's Walpole, it's a long way, people have come, majority of our people, 63% I think, come from Perth and Peel regions. So we're getting people coming down from Perth, so we make a weekend of it. So ours runs over 2 sessions, 3 sessions, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, and we put on a big dinner so everyone can get together, have a good chat and socialise and stuff. And they're usually knackered, so they all finish up by 8:30, which is great. Collating all the information is really exciting. So this is some work by Katie Syme. A lot of you know Katie. So she basically is brilliant at pulling all her specimens together. We've taken the other thing about INAT is you can do a lot with photos. So because to collect anything you do need special permits. So if you have a botanist with a permit and the right regulations to actually enter, you're allowed to collect samples. So Katie could collect samples and collect them this way. But for most of our work was done photographically. And if you are going to do a bioblitz, make sure you get all of your ducks in a row when it comes to permits and regs, because the powers that be don't like it if you're doing the wrong thing. So we basically stress to everyone, don't collect anything unless you have got your appropriate licenses. And everything we aim to do, every activity, whether it be insects or things like that, is all done pretty non-invasively. But we have people from the museum coming in, they all have their permits to collect. The aquatic team all have their permits to collect. So that did happen. So for 2021, what's really interesting is the most common species, or the most ones that were photographed. So these are the top 3. So obviously the silky blue orchid, Anarthria, and this is Crowea. And 30 to 40 people would have photographed and identified different ones of these. Maybe 30 people photographed the same one, I don't know. But these were the ones that will stand out. This is around the area around Granite Peak. So it's sort of jarrah woodland, there was Karri forest there, but fairly typical sort of jarrah woodland. And what's really interesting, if we look at the next slide, is a completely 3 different species. So this is more tingle forest jarrah, and so we have Karri baronia, the leucopogon, and the screw fern. So even though really close together, 20, 30 k's apart, people identified very different things. They were looking in a really different way. And it was quite fun just to see what people were into, and a lot of people really just enjoyed sitting down looking through leaf litter, looking for bugs. It was one of the more popular activities. But we're fortunate also, we have an ecologist on our committee who has 40 Reconyx cameras and has permits to go and set them for trapping, camera trapping. So these were set about 6 weeks before the bioblitzs, and then pulled in. These ones came in after the bioblitzs. And yeah, so this is 2021, and this is obviously a quoll, so up around Granite Peak area, which is really cool. There's another one, which is this little fella. So this is all, the 2021 was around Granite Peak, and that's the area that Bart mentioned of the really nasty fire, the 092 fire, where 15,000 hectares was burnt, an additional 10,000. I guess what's good, but maybe not so good, is the fact that that baseline data of the camera trapping and the mammals was the only baseline data that DBCA had for that area. So that was their starting point. So what a group of volunteers had done and put out there is the baseline data. So that's why it's really important we do it, because places like Mount Halliwell, I don't know how well surveyed it is, but we need some baselines just to work out what's out there. So, this is a significant one, it's a rare moss, and we found it. Plurifascum has these big giant orange balls on, but yeah, quite a rare moss, and so that was last year's one. Indigenous heritage, that's one of the ones we found really quite challenging. We haven't been able to sort of entice any elders across just yet, but we did have an archaeologist on our first trip, and he found 11 artefacts. So this is a piece from some worked quartz. So yeah, it was quite good to have that sort of level of interpretation. So that's something else you can think about, is having some archaeology work done if you've got the right people out there.
Yeah.
This stuff is a little bit harder to record on iNaturalist. You can put it up there, I think. But it's not always the opportunity for things like the lizard shelters, lizard traps. So we've got to sort of come up with another way of recording that information as well. But we're doing sort of photographic records of those. So they're really important things to record while we're out there. Obviously we don't disturb them. But yeah, so they're really good things. And people are very, very interested in that. So if you can include that Indigenous component, it's great. Yeah. 2023. So, as I said earlier, we have already been heavily subscribed for this one. We've basically trying to challenge ourselves each year. So we decided we're going to make this one four-wheel drive. Previous ones we've made it two-wheel drive accessible. So this year we're going four-wheel drive. So I don't know if anyone knows Soho Hills, it's the area down here. So Mount Franklin's just over there. And so this area is the sunset frog habitat, hence the frog people coming. And yeah, so Bow Bridge is down here. And yeah, so we're going to focus along this road here where we can and heading up through there. This is the bottom part of that burn that escaped. So we've got some burnt area. So this area here was burnt in 2016 and that one's 2015. So we've got a little bit of different fuel ages and that gives us a range of different species as well. And then this is my favourite slide, is the fact that if you want to organise a bioblitz, it's like herding cats. You get 160 people out there, they all just go zoom every direction, and your job is to try and get them back. It's good fun, it really is. Our number one thing though is safety-wise, and we could talk about what we do for safety, but you just want everyone to get out there, have fun, and come back again. And it's just sharing what you love about the bush. You know, when you're out there in a group, you just say what it is. You might find you've got someone in your group who's an expert on birds, you might find someone else who actually knows their orchids, and that's what's creating those connections has been what's really, really successful. So from the two sides of the story, there's really, the community engagement is amazing. Like what the connections that are made, the people that want to come back, the people that are coming back on a regular basis, yeah, is really good. They're getting out on country, they're seeing where it is, and they're sitting there, they question, why are we burning it so hard? You know, you're getting all these extra eyes out there, all these extra people connecting. And that side of it has been a really big hit. And then the science side of it, as I say, the data's being used as pretty much the baseline for that fire area. The data from the peatlands has gone to Canberra. There's a species list of everything from the peats, and that went with our threatened ecological community nomination that we did. So the data does get used. We don't know who's downloaded the data off iNat, but I'm sure people have. Yeah, there's the black cockatoo recovery team contact people when they put up a shot about cockatoos, so that they're following it, so they know where the cockatoo observations are. So it's really, really sort of important and it's great. And as I say, it's really good fun, and you meet heaps of good people. So, yeah. Questions?
Yeah, how easy is it to get your information that goes into iNaturalist back out of it?
Really easy.
It's really easy?
Yep, you just go in, so you can zoom onto a square. So to get the peat data, we just zoom, like you can pull up a map, you just zoom into that peat that we know we surveyed, and you can just download all those observations in that little square. Or you can go and do a search for silky blue orchids, and it'll show all the silky blue orchid observations. So there's a number of different ways. It's really easy. It takes a little while to download the report. It's a slow report, so it takes 3 or 4 minutes. But yeah, it's there, you just get into it, and you can just download it straight away.
Did you actually identify any chytrid fungus on any of the frogs?
No, because we were doing non-invasive, so part of, you're not allowed to catch a frog. So we have no permission to actually catch or handle frogs. So we can photograph and record their sounds, unless we have someone with a permit to do the frog work. And also, because chytrid doesn't show up on their skin, you have to actually do a lab test to test for it. Right. Yeah, there's no way we could really do that in the context of the bioblitzs. But we are looking at eDNA, so using water samples, testing that water, looking at the DNA that's in the water, and chytrid can show up that way. Yeah. So that's something we have tried to get eDNA happening regularly, and we've got some happening this year. And that's something you can really investigate. If you can get into standing pools of water, you can actually do eDNA, and that'll tell you if there's a ring-tailed possum's peed there or something like that, that sort of thing. As an aside, I was out with the frog team in December, and yes, we have detected chytrids on a sunset frog. So it is out there in the sunsets. So unfortunately, yes, we know it's there.
Dave, bearing in mind the protocols you mentioned, do you see potential to get bioblitzs into the schools?
Yeah, look, we have it's a hugely popular with the kids, and yeah, it's certainly you could integrate it very easily. The model works. There's a lot of stuff on the internet about how it works in schools as a program, and yeah, so it's a really good thing to do. And yeah, schools you wouldn't take them necessarily out to the middle of the wilderness, but they can do it in small reserves quite close to town. Works really well. And then if you go online, there's a heap of resources. I don't know if you've been on and had a look, but there's heaps of resources. INAT is run by National Geographic, and so they also have a whole heap of resources. They also have a whole heap of videos you can watch on how to run bioblitzs and stuff like that. So yeah, there's plenty of good information out there, and the kids loved it too. And the kids found some of the best stuff. Yeah, that was cool. Any question? Cool. Easy done.
Thank you.
Did you want to should we try that video or?
Oh yeah, sure.
So I was just asked, and this is separate side, it was South Coast NRM has a new platform that they just wanted to let you guys know about. It's a new volunteer project platform, so I don't know if anyone knows too much about it, but what it is it's a way of putting your projects and sharing it amongst a wider audience and capturing more volunteers. So they're trying to get as many of our sort of community groups involved as possible to share that. You said to me, do you know more about it?
I just was on it today, in fact, because we're in the group and Laura's work from South Coast NRM is
Laura's us, yeah.
is doing all of this. So.
Yeah, so there's just two little short videos, so if you have a look in this bit, the South Coast NRM stuff.
People that we speak to who really want to participate in environmental activities don't know where to look for